Welcome to Senior Focus. My name is Laurie and I'll be your host. Today we have with us attorney David Cerullo. David specializes in elder law. Welcome, David.
Thank you for having me, Laurie. Hello, everybody.
So why don't we start with talking about what is elder law? What does that specialty mean?
Well, elder law encompasses a lot of different areas. When we talk about elder law, a lot of times we talk about estate planning and what people need to have in place to make sure that their estate is not taken down the line. The things that they've worked all their lives for are not taken if, God forbid, something happens and they need to go into a facility. We also talk about MassHealth and those benefits with folks. So that's another area of elder law. And one other area that I've recently gotten involved with is veterans benefits. And a lot of times when folks come in, they're not even aware that they may qualify for benefits through the VA.
Excellent. So in terms of the estate planning, sort of that first thing that you spoke about, what is it that we should know about that? How should we be prepared when we're going to meet with an elder law attorney in terms of what documents do we need to have, and what is it that we're going to work on together?
Yes, well, basically whenever you meet with an attorney, you want to make sure that that attorney specializes in estate planning. A lot of attorneys will be out there and they'll say, well, you know, I can do a will, I do divorces and I can do a will for you as well too, and then the person ends up with a one-page document. You really want to make sure that the attorney specializes in elder law or in estate planning. And so typically when someone comes in the door or when they contact me, I say to them, look, I'm going to give you some homework to do. I'm going to ask you to put together some of your assets, summarize it if you want to, or bring in recent statements of all of your accounts, because number one, I want to get a value on the estate right away, and number two, I also want to see who's on the accounts, because if they're money markets, CDs, they're going to be beneficiaries there. We want to make sure that those beneficiaries are all up to date. A lot of times people don't look at that stuff until they're asked, and then they say, oh geez, I haven't seen that in a while. So that's the starting point, and then when they come in the door, hopefully they have some of that information. And then I usually start off by talking to folks about 3 basic documents that they should have in place.
Okay.
And the way that I explain the documents is you want to tell everybody, you want to tell the world what you want to have happen to both your stuff, all of the stuff that you own, and yourself. Mm-hmm. So the first document I usually talk to people about is the durable power of attorney. Mm-hmm. And with the durable power of attorney, if you think about the title, it's durable. It's in effect as soon as you sign it. And basically what it is, it's a written document whereby you're going to appoint an agent called an attorney. In fact, the agent, for purposes of what we're discussing, we can call it an agent.
Okay.
But the attorney in fact or the agent can be anybody that you trust. And the reason why I say that is the power of attorney is a very powerful document. It goes into effect as soon as you sign it. So Laurie, if I said to you, geez, I really trust you, I'm going to give you a power of attorney to do my banking. I sign that original power of attorney, I give it to you. You can go right now and go do my banking for me.
I'd love to do that.
Oh, great, yeah. You're not going to find much there, but so that's the first thing. And so usually my documents will give that agent specific powers. And what types of powers are there? Well, there's the power to make entities. As an agent, if you're doing an estate plan for a loved one, you may need to form a trust, especially if you're trying to qualify somebody for MassHealth, to do a MassHealth trust. Coupled with that is a power to actually make gifts. So you're going to fund the trust, in other words. And that's a very important power to have inside the document itself. And then we talk about conservator, guardianship, and we say, well, if that is necessary. The whole idea behind these documents is you don't want the family to have to go running to the probate court for authority to act on behalf of a loved one.
Sure.
So what you're going to say is if there is a guardianship or conservatorship that becomes necessary for whatever reason, I want these people to act as my agents with the court, petition the court for power to do so. And also from there, we do talk about HIPAA language, and HIPAA is the Healthcare Privacy Act that's in place, and without that power, a person will not be able to access medical records if they need to down the line. So that power is also included in my powers of attorney. And then finally, you know, there's other general powers that are there. But one of the biggest powers that I've heard about being important is the power to represent the loved one in front of a government agency. So if there, for instance, there is a MassHealth application that's rejected for some reason,
Yep.
the agent can go before the appeals board. Without that power, the appeals board won't hear
Sure.
the agent. So that's usually the first document I talk to people about, and it talks about what do I want to have happen to my stuff.
Yep.
The next document that I talk to people about is the healthcare proxy,
Very important.
and yeah, especially for communities, right? The healthcare proxy is a little bit different from the power of attorney in that it deals with the person. Just think about the title of that one, healthcare. And the doctors and the people treating the loved one aren't going to look for a power of attorney. If someone should need to enter a community or a nursing home, they're not looking for the power of attorney generally. They're looking for the healthcare proxy because that's going to allow an agent, a person, to act on behalf of the other to make the call for medical decisions. And with the healthcare proxy, only one agent can serve at a time.
Yep.
And it only goes into effect when you can't make your own decisions anymore.
And I think that is such an important piece. I think that's something that people often misunderstand and are fearful of. So if you could speak about that, that'd be
Sure.
great.
So when you can't make your own decisions, you get sick, you're in a state where you can't make your own decisions, the document allows a person to step in on behalf of you to make your decisions for you. My powers of attorney will talk about what happens if I get better.
Yep.
And then who makes the call?
Yep.
Well, if you're not determined to be incompetent,
Absolutely.
the person who made the document is the one that makes the call if and when they get better.
Yep.
Also, my powers of attorney will talk about what we call living will language. A lot of attorneys will do separate documents for living wills, and basically what that language is talking about is life support.
Yes.
And my document will say, you know, I value the quality of life, and I don't want to be put on life support if something should happen to me and the prognosis is bleak. In other words, taking me off of life support. And it makes the decision, we hope, a little bit easier for the person who's taking care of the loved one,
Right.
to make the call on that.
And one of the things I like about that is that it's giving voice to the person when they may not be able to, like you said, have that voice. It's making sure that what they want is known, that it's really not, hopefully, handing those decisions over to somebody else, but finding out what that person's wanting. And there's layers to it, so understanding what they want in scenario A versus scenario B.
And the important things about all of these documents is it talks about your intent.
Yep.
As you just mentioned. So, and as I say to folks when they come in the door, you want to tell everybody that's involved what you want.
Absolutely.
Now, the first two documents that we just talked about are while the person's still with us.
Yep.
They're still alive. And they basically die when the person dies. So, so yes, you want to say to folks, if for whatever reason I can't make my own decisions, this is what I want. And this is who I want taking care of me. And then the third document I talk about is the will. And the will is when you're gone, but it's still talking about your stuff, what you want to have happen to your stuff, and who do you want to take care of it. So with that document, you know, anybody can go out into Staples or online and get these forms. I don't recommend it. Every state has its own requirements for these documents to be valid. And so what I usually say to folks is you want to come in and at least talk about it, and then you can make your own decision later what you want to do. But with these documents, once again, with the will, you're going to appoint what we used to call an executor.
Yep.
Or an executrix. Now it's a personal representative. We just had a new uniform probate code that went into place last year with all the probate courts, and so they're changing all the terminology now. So you want to appoint a personal representative to take care of your estate. And then with the will itself, as far as the execution of the will, the person's got to be at least 18 years of age. They have to be of sound mind. The document itself has to be in writing, of course, and it has to be witnessed by two disinterested people.
Okay.
So a person who is named in the will as being a beneficiary, someone who's going to receive some of your stuff through the will, if they serve as a witness, that's not going to work.
Right.
You have to get somebody that's disinterested to actually witness the will. Without those witnesses, the will could be deemed invalid.
Wow.
So I've had some real life examples of the situation. For instance, I just recently in the probate court had to get a handwritten will allowed. Now, in general, Massachusetts does not allow what we call holographic wills. It was handwritten by the guy. It's an old timer, but great handwriting. You could read it, and it just so happens that 2 people did witness it.
Wow.
So I was able to push it through. That was one instance where probably an elder law attorney would have done that guy some good.
Yep.
It wouldn't have been making the family stress out about getting this will allowed by the probate court. But another real-life example where all of these documents came into play, I had a daughter come in with her dad. He was starting to slide a little bit. We just didn't know how far he was going to slide mentally. And we went ahead, we put all 3 documents in place for him. We actually made a transfer of the house as well, because we were hoping that we were trying to make the MassHealth 5-year look-back cutoff.
Yep.
And so, as it worked out, Dad, unfortunately, took a turn for the worse, and it was 3 years later. The daughter took out the documents. She was able to administer his care with the healthcare proxy.
Yeah.
She was able to take care of his assets with the power of attorney, do all his banking for him. He had stock. She had the cash to stock in. And then, unfortunately, he eventually passed away, and we have family members that are estranged in this instance, and they're looking for money, of course, which often happens. And so the will takes care of his intent when he's gone.
Right.
So-
Right. Absolutely. Well, that's good that the real life examples I think are great to, help us all relate. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was what some of the common misconceptions are about those documents. I know one that I have heard a number of times when I talk to people about wills and power of attorney. People think that it's for the wealthy. People will think that, oh, well, that doesn't pertain to me because my assets aren't in the millions, and that's not obviously the case, right?
No.
So I'm wondering if you might, what are some of the misconceptions that you come across about those documents?
Well, as far as what people's thoughts are, first of all, they think that, well, if I don't have these documents, the state's going to take everything, right? And that's not the case. There's actually intestacy laws in place that handle estates when people pass away and they don't have a will. So it goes down a bloodline. There is a method to the madness. But it's not for the wealthy, okay? If you have a house, if you have investments, it doesn't matter how much, okay? Right. These folks should know that they should have these documents, these basic documents in place, because first of all, you want to take care of your family. Right. Like for instance, with the will, you can designate, you can actually establish a trust for your children that are minors. You can designate people that can act as guardians of your children if you want to as well too when you're gone. You handle large assets like the house. And I do a lot of conveyancing in my practice as well too. It kind of spun off, and they're all related. And usually when people come in the door, the biggest asset they have is their house.
Sure.
And so you have a house and it's in your name individually, you absolutely should have these documents in place.
Yeah.
And these documents, as I mentioned in the beginning, are geared for the avoidance of the probate court.
Yep.
Probate court can cost thousands of dollars to go in and allow your family to get the simple authority to take care of you.
Yeah.
And so these documents avoid that for the most part. There's some instances where it may become necessary when you have family fighting, but for the most part, it avoids the probate court. So they're very good things to have. They talk about your intent, and they talk about who you want to have take care of your stuff, and what you want to have happen to your stuff. And if you don't have these documents in place, your stuff might end up in the hands of somebody you don't want it to end up with. So all the more reason to have it.
Right. One of the things that you talked about earlier that I wanted to know if we could go into a bit is MassHealth Medicaid, and understanding how that works and what the steps are.
Sure. Well, a lot of times people get Medicare confused with Medicaid.
Yep.
Medicare, just to try to make a distinction between the two of them, everybody's basically entitled to Medicare. And it goes into play usually when you're 65 years of age, or you're disabled, you're blind. And Part A, there's actually 4 parts, A, B, C, and D. D is the drug program. But everybody basically gets A. And that's for medical insurance, basically. Okay, that's to take care of medical expenses. B, C, and D, a lot of times there are premiums charged for those, but it's all run through the feds, the federal government. MassHealth, as we call it, or Medicaid, is federal and state. It's been enacted, the act is federal. So the law that was written is federal.
Okay.
And then the states act upon that act that was put in place by the feds. So state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth, has its own office that handles Medicaid.
Yep.
We call it in Massachusetts MassHealth. It's one and the same. And they actually changed it officially to MassHealth to try to do away with the confusion between Medicaid and Medicare. So with MassHealth, usually this involves long-term care. I mean, there are other phases of MassHealth that deal with prescriptions and deal with people that are healthy in the community and need help. But for the most part, when I talk about MassHealth, it's when a person's going into a facility or into a community, a nursing home, and they need long-term care, and they just can't afford $12,000 to $15,000 a month to pay for the facility. And so with that, there are specific guidelines that Massachusetts and the feds put in place that people have to meet. There is a 5-year look-back period, which means that if you make a transfer within a 5-year period prior to applying, MassHealth is going to say that's disqualifying. And they're going to disqualify you in time as opposed to disqualifying you in money. The time actually equals money because you're privately paying for your care up until the point that you qualify. The other thing is that the individual, if it's just one person, can only have $2,000 in their name total. So normally the primary residence, the home, is not countable. So that doesn't go toward the assets, but anything you have in your name, whether it's jointly, with your kids, with a spouse, it's counted. And so if it's just an individual that we're talking about that's trying to apply and we don't have a healthy spouse, they can't have any more than $2,000 in their name. Now that bumps up when you have a healthy spouse and a sick spouse person going into the facility. They typically can have just over $115,000 total between the two of them. And anything above and beyond that has to be spent down. So there are some qualifying factors there, but we look at every case, it's case by case. And the family dynamic goes into everything.
So what happens if somebody needs to apply for MassHealth and they gave their daughter $50,000 to start the new business a year and a half ago and that business fails? So that $50,000 is gone, but it falls within that 5-year look back.
Well, typically when there's a transfer that's made within the 5-year period, MassHealth allows a cure if it can be done. In your example, it can't be done. But if the $50,000 was given to a daughter, and so long as she didn't go spend it down in Foxwood for the day, if she still has it in her possession, she can just transfer it back to mom and cure the problem, and we can then we'll have to deal with the $50,000 after that. If the $50,000 is not accessible at that point, mom's going to be penalized in time for the $50,000. There's an equation that we use. We plug it in, and you divide it, and you come out with a number of months that mom will not qualify for MassHealth. And so it equals $12,000 to $15,000 a month. So it's big money. So yeah, when you have that instance, it's difficult to do, but you got to factor it in, and then hopefully there's enough other assets remaining to privately pay for mom's care.
While you're waiting for that to kick in. Oh, wow. And then the other thing you talked about earlier too, which I'm anxious to talk about because I think it is one of the least known benefits that I've ever come across, is the aid and attendance benefit for veterans and their spouses and widows, in fact. I am stunned at how often I'm speaking with a veteran or their family and they do not know it exists. So I would love for you to speak about that if you could.
Yeah, but we actually give workshops on the aid and attendance benefit. Yes, with aid and attendance now, as I usually say to folks, when I have a veteran come in the door, now there's another spin on estate planning and elder law, and if we have a veteran that's involved, MassHealth or Medicaid and the VA don't play well together with their regulations. Okay, while the VA has an unstated amount that a person can have in their name as far as assets. It's $80,000, although it's unofficial. Anybody with above $80,000 in assets usually is looked at differently. It doesn't mean that they won't qualify for the aid and attendance benefit. but it means that they'll qualify on a different level. Just to back up a little bit, the aid and attendance benefit is an added pension. Okay, so a veteran can be receiving a pension from the VA and then very well qualify for aid and attendance, and they can receive up to $2,000 a month. It's an immediate benefit. It can be applied to anything. So the veteran will get that payment, and they can pay for assisted living community.
Yep.
They can pay for their own care. They can be at home. It doesn't matter where they are. And so that's an immediate benefit. But to qualify for that benefit, sometimes people are going to be required to transfer things away. And so what I usually say to folks is, great, you're going to get the benefit now, but think down the road, are you going to need MassHealth? Because if you're going to need MassHealth, you got a 5-year look-back period.
Right.
The veterans doesn't have a look-back period.
Right.
So you can qualify for it right away. And they look at basically the person's income in comparison to what we call their unreimbursed medical expenses.
Yep.
An assisted living community is an unreimbursed medical expense that can offset the income. And usually when a person is in a community, they can qualify
Yep.
for the VA. But they may have to transfer some benefits, some assets away. And if they do that, they may be disqualifying themselves from MassHealth down the line.
Right.
They don't play well together. As I say, they're two big monsters, and a lot of times they butt heads. And so we have to make a decision right off the bat. It's very difficult to do.
Sure.
What path do you want to go down?
Right.
And then we work from there. But with the aid and attendance benefit, it's a great little stipend for someone to receive. It's immediate. They look at your income, they compare it to what you have for medical expenses. They also look at your time of service. If you fall within the periods of war, you have
Yep.
to serve 1 day within a period of war.
Right.
For the most part, if they qualify for those service dates and they qualify with the income, then we can usually get them the benefit itself. The benefit takes about 4 to 6 months before you hear back from the Veterans Administration. The vets have been, the administration itself has been very active lately with applicants as well too. Once upon a time it would just kind of go into a black hole and we'd wait to hear an answer. Now you actually get telephone calls from the VA
Wow.
saying, we need this X, Y, and Z, I'm trying to get this closed, and they'll work with you.
That's great.
So it's a great benefit if a person can qualify for it. They just have to keep in mind they may be disqualifying themselves for other benefits down the line.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, the aid and attendance benefit is also available to a spouse of a veteran?
It is.
As well
yes.
as a widow
Yes.
of a veteran, as well as the couple. So
Right.
the dollar amount could potentially increase if
Exactly.
they're both requiring some sort of medical attention. And that seems to be fairly broad. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean hospital level care, but even
No.
if they're needing, sort of the bathing, grooming, those pieces, they might still potentially qualify.
Activities of daily living, yeah, they do
Yep.
look at that, the facet as well. Yes, family members, children, widows, spouses, they can qualify for the benefit as well. And usually what I say is the more people involved, the higher the benefit goes, typically. If you have 2 veterans that are in the same household, that's the jackpot.
Yeah, yeah.
So yes, it's crazy how little people know about it.
You're right.
If of all the veterans that are out there, they say there's probably just a quarter of them that actually know about the benefit. So that's kind of the reason why we do the workshops.
That's great.
And we do them at communities,
Yep.
just to try and educate the veterans that are out there. Hey, look, you could possibly qualify for an additional, $15,000, $2,000 a month. Would that help you?
Right, right.
And it makes a big difference for them.
Sure does. It sure does. That's fantastic. One of the things you talked about earlier that I wanted to touch on a bit, if we could, is you had mentioned that you specialize in elder law, and that there are a number of attorneys out there that specialize in other things. So if somebody's watching this and thinking, I need to get some of those documents in place, I need to learn more about MassHealth, I need to learn more about aid and attendance, they open up the yellow pages or go online or ask a friend. How does somebody know who the right attorney is for them? How do you shop?
Well, yes, like anything else, there's a lot of information available online. You can certainly start by going online. The other thing I would say to folks is looking online and talking to the attorney. Make sure they specialize in
Sure.
elder law. Like you're mentioning, a lot of attorneys out there, they'll do real estate, or they'll do criminal law. Oh, but I can do a will for you. Anybody can do a will as long as we follow the basic guidelines
Yep.
that the Commonwealth sets on us. Anybody can complete a will, and they're right in that factor. But what you also want to do is, say for instance, in the very beginning, when I said someone initially contacts me over the phone, I give them homework to do.
Yep.
And I say, and I explain why. I say, look, put together a summary of your assets. Give me statements of your most recent statements of all of your bank accounts and all of your accounts that you have out there. The reason why I do this is because I want to get a value on your estate, and to make sure there's no estate taxes. And also I want to see who's on the accounts. That should tell someone right off the bat a lot.
Yep.
If I'm spending the time with you on the phone and I'm not asking for anything as far as a fee, I'm saying to you, put this stuff together for me.
Right.
Come in and we'll talk.
Yep.
And then your initial consultation should also tell you right away. First of all, I don't charge for initial consultation.
Wow.
Some do.
Yeah.
And then the topics that are discussed in that initial consultation, they should be talking about what these documents mean. They should be talking about MassHealth, and they should be mentioning, if there's a vet involved, at least the VA, at least in passing.
Yep.
If you're not getting any of those things from the attorney that you're sitting down with, time to move on.
Yep. Excellent. Well, thank you. I really appreciate your coming today and sort of enlightening us on all of this. Certainly, if you have any questions, you can contact me at 978-276-2010. I can always put you in touch with David. Do you want to share your number
Sure.
with us?
Thank you for having me, Laurie.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for paying attention and listening to me blab. Yes, my number is 781-662-9200. My office is located in Melrose, and you can also find me online at cerullolaw.com. It's CERUOLOLAW.com.
Thank you. And if you have any future show suggestions, that would be fantastic too. You can email me or again, call me at that number, and I look forward to hearing some great show ideas. Thanks again for joining us, David.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody.